going to start since the time is already 10:05. And before we start, I would like to welcome everyone, panelists and fellow members. And we will start by singing lagu Indonesia Raya with our right hand over our left chest over the video. Baik, para hadirin, anggota dan sahabat Harvard Club of Indonesia, perkenalkan kembali saya Andre Prawira Putra, Harvard School of Public Health, Master of Public Health 2018. Kami atas nama board dari Harvard Club of Indonesia mengucapkan selamat pagi dan selamat datang. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, dan salam kebajikan. And all the greetings of faith that is out there. On this Sunday, the 28th of June, 2020, we will be holding the extraordinary general meeting of members of HCI. Dear attendees of the meeting, as we know, the agenda of this EGM is first, establishment of Perkumpulan Klub Harvard Indonesia, and amendment and restatement of the Constitution of HCI. And second, report by the President and the Vice President of the club activities from April 2019 until May 2020, and the board decision to enforce membership dues as of July 2020. However, based on the request of our President, agenda number 2 on the report of activities will be discussed prior to agenda number 1. Thus, the sequence of the meeting will start with the report by the President and the Vice President of the club activities from April 2019 until May 2020, and the board decision to enforce membership dues as of July 2020, followed by the agenda of establishment of Perkumpulan Klub Harvard Indonesia, and amendment and restatement of the Constitution of HCI. Therefore, this EGM, the following rules of the meeting procedures as follows. Due to the extraordinary conditions of the pandemic, the EGM is done electronically through Zoom webinar. So it's in the webinar format. The EGM will be conducted in English language with some combination of the Indonesian language. as may be necessary and appropriate, save that the resolution voted upon will be in the English language. And then participants will need to ensure internet connection, but only panelists will be visible because of the webinar format. So what we call attendees here will not be able to see the numbers of the total attendance. And the next one is, in line with webinar format, all participants are muted automatically, and questions will be done through the chat Zoom. So you can still post in the middle, the chat button there. And then members of HCI who have registered through the link of the previously sent link in the WhatsApp group, and their votes will be counted as part of the quorum and voting. Members are entitled to ask questions or state opinions through the chat box. Following each agenda, there will be 2 Q&A sessions for each agenda. For each session will be limited to 3 questions. If at the second session there are no more questions, then the Q&A will be closed. The chairperson may ask the assistance of directors or the legal team to provide clarification and answer questions or respond to opinions expressed by a member attending the EGM through the chat box. Vote is counted by Google Form, and the secretary is in charge of counting quorum and votes and will read the questions and or opinions expressed in relation to the particular agenda items and defer it to the chairperson. No votes by registrants will be considered abstain. The chairperson has the right to reject questions which are not related to the agenda items being discussed. If there's any questions and our opinion at the beginning of the Q&A session, then the Q&A session ends. If there is no questions, I'm sorry, and one continue with the agenda or decision taking or vote. The chairperson or the person asked to lead the answer and question has the full right to take all actions to maintain the order of the EGM. So those are the rules, and we're getting to the next part. So we have done the invitation, registration, and voting ballot procedure as explained in the following slide. So you can see in the slide that that's the information that we posted in the group and the timeline chronologically. The invitation was issued on the 12th of June, 2020. The registration was opened as of the 20th of June, 2020, and voting ballot was open since the 26th of June, 2020. The first meeting's quorum was not met. Thus, the EGM was adjourned to today. Okay, before we start the EGM, let us introduce some of the members of the Board of Advisors and who are also proposed to become members of the Board of Supervisors at the time the Perkumpulan is established. We will also give each of them an opportunity to say a few words prior to commencing the meeting. Can we have the slide, please? Okay. Here is Bapak Hasan M. Sujono, Harvard Business School, Master of Business Administration 1977, past president of HCI, and now a member of the Board of Advisors. And as one of the 3 past presidents, will sit at the Board of Supervisors after the Perkumpulan is established. I'm sorry, there's a typo there. It's supposed to be Sujono. And to Pak Hasan, the floor is yours, probably maximum 2 minutes of speech. Pak Hasan, if you could unmute first. Thank you.
Yes. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Good Sunday morning. Thank you, Dr. Andre Prawira Putra. Thank you all for attending this HCI EGM taking place in extraordinary circumstances. I truly appreciate your setting aside time to join us today on what otherwise would be just another end-of-month Sunday morning. I'm a past 2-term president of HCI, notably at a time when nobody was counting terms nor tenure. I joined HCI in 1978 when HCI was already 3 years young. The board members, and especially HCI's legal team and President Melli, have spent countless hours and days to come up with the Constitution to be voted on today, which in its present form is endorsed by Harvard University and hence will allow us to register HCI as a proper perkumpulan with Indonesia's Ministry of Law. Needless to say, there has been much discussion, heated but always cordial, about substance, format, and process. Different views have been expressed and the board have been sensitive in listening to all sides. There even were final and crucial clarifications in the wee hours of this morning. To close, on behalf of all members of HCI, I'd like to thank President Melli, her board, and the HCI legal team for their tireless and selfless commitment, dedication, and work, which now has produced a milestone document which made happen today's EGM. Thanks again for attending and for voting. May God bless HCI and us all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pak Hasan. And we're moving on. The chairman will be Pak Hasan. Okay, before moving on, I'm going to announce as well that Pak Hasan will be the chairman of today's EGM. Now, Bapak Daniel Budiman, Harvard Business School Master of Business Administration, 1995. He was the past president of HCI and now a member of the Board of Advisors and designated sit at the Board of Supervisors after the Perkumpulan is established. To Pak Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Dre. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera dan salam sehat untuk teman-teman semuanya. In this extraordinary times, in this beautiful Sunday morning, I feel very lucky actually that I'm sitting here to see that a new constitution that Ibu Melli and her large team has worked on for many, many months, consulting with many parties and also with, especially with Harvard Alumni Association in Cambridge, and have produced this document. It is probably not perfect, nothing is perfect, but it's a big step for our beloved Harvard community in Indonesia. I feel very privileged to have served this club for 2 terms and also to serve the HAA as Director of Asia Pacific actually for 6 years afterwards. In that role, I've seen many, many clubs. I think we oversaw around 25 clubs ranging from Japan, China, down to Southeast Asia, to Australia and New Zealand. And so I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, and I've seen also how the good clubs that we can use as role model, and also some of the less ideal situation. I'm very happy to see that, in my own opinion, the club, because of the leadership right now, is in a very healthy, situation. I can see that the leaders are working for always looking for the interest of the members and not for their own personal interest. And that is always the best for a volunteer organization like this, that, that we try to put a good foundation with global standard. We try to expand the community, the Harvard community in Indonesia, hopefully by having a lot more people go to Harvard, and also to tirelessly serve the needs of the members. I've seen so many events in the last 1.5 years. The Do Good drive during COVID, that was amazing. And also, so I'm very excited to be in this club, right now. Maybe I'll just end. I mean, yesterday, Tiara and I had dinner with my 90-year-old father-in-law, who's still thankfully healthy during these scary times. And we told him that, hey, tomorrow we're gonna have a meeting for HCI to have this new constitution tabled. And we told him about the activities and everything, and he was very impressed. I think he and with several people founded this club around 45 years ago. And is very happy that it has grown to be this big, this vibrant, and hopefully useful for all its members. Thank you so much to everyone for attending and voting. Thank you for the team, Ibu Meli and the team, for all your work, and let's move forward together as one. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Daniel, for joining us in this historical time. And moving on. The next one is Bapak George Hendrata, Harvard Business School, Master of Business Administration, 2000. Was the past president of HCI and now a member of the Board of Advisors, and designated to sit at the Board of Supervisors after the program is established. Do we have George here? Yeah, I don't, probably he's a bit late joining us, so we'll keep moving on to the next one. And of course, our dearest Mbak Meli Darsa, Harvard Law School Master of Laws, 1994, President of Harvard Club of Indonesia for the period of 2019 till 2022. And probably Mbak Meli will know. Okay. Moving on. And also our Vice President, Mbak Nurul Nadia Luntungan, Harvard School of Public Health, Master of Public Health 2014 for the period of 2019 to 2022. And the next one. And I myself as the secretary for the same period of 2019 until 2022. Next slide. And Bu Arisia Arundati Pusponegoro, or Mbak Jika, as we all know it, Harvard Law School Master of Laws, 2008, as the treasurer of Harvard Club of Indonesia for the period of 2019 to 2022. Next slide. So for the purpose of the drafting of the new constitution, the president was assisted by the amazing legal team comprising of, let me read the full list of the legal team, from Professor Dr. Mulia Lubis, Sarjana Hukum, Master of Laws from Harvard Law School 1988, and also our Dr. Gatot Sumartono, Sarjana Hukum, Master of Laws from Harvard Law School 1997, and also Bang Ondi Panggabean, Sarjana Hukum, Master of Laws from Harvard Law School 1991, and also Pak Togi Pangaribuan, Sarjana Hukum, Master of Laws from Harvard Law School 2011, and of course Mbak Jika, Sarjana Hukum, Master of Laws, Harvard Law School 2008. Whilst His Excellency Ambassador Mulia Lubis is unable to join us due to the time difference, Dr. Gatot Sumartono will be saying a few words representing the legal team. Please, Professor.
Okay, thanks, Andre. And hello, everyone, all my friends. Very good morning and good to see you all. On behalf of the legal team, I would like to thank all of you very, very much for joining this event. The legal team itself consisting of Bang Todung, Bang Ondi, Togi, Chika, and of course, President Melly and I myself. We all have worked hard on the preparations of this constitution draft since the end of last year, actually. And we must say it's not a smooth process, and even to some extent, it's a difficult one. Simply because we are not able to put all our ideal things into the constitution. There is some sort of compromise in which we might not really want to do it, but we have to do it. We always need to refer to the Harvard Alumni Association and listen to their advice, and at the same time also to comply with Indonesian regulations. Because at the end of the day, we plan to transform this constitution into an Indonesian legal entity or Perkumpulan. The result of such compromise is what now becomes the proposed constitution. And I believe you have read it. And I must say that this is the maximum result that the legal team is able to achieve, or probably is the most ideal one we can produce. Even if there are still some weaknesses in the proposed constitutions, it has covered all the important and necessary aspects. Of course, we are fully aware that we cannot satisfy all of your expectations. As such, please kindly see the proposed constitution from the positive points of view instead of the negative ones. That's all we can share with you. And again, on behalf of the legal team, we would like to express our immense gratitude to all of you for your active participations, kind attention, and support. Thank you very, very much. And I return to Andre.
Thank you, Pak Gatot. And apparently, Pak George is already here. He was already here before, so I didn't see him. I'm really sorry. So I'm going to give the floor to Pak George Hendrata, please. George, George, sorry, are you on mute? Because we cannot hear you. I think there's some technical issues, so we'll move on while we figure out how to deal with the issue. Okay. So today's EGM shall be chaired by past president of HCI, as we all know it, Pak Hasan M. Sujono. So to Pak Hasan, you can start from now.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Thank you again, Andre. I have already greeted you all a few minutes ago and already introduced myself. So let me chair this EGM with very short opening remarks. HCI is now well over 40 years old, in fact, 45 years old at least. We have transformed from a club of 40 or so members meeting for bi-monthly lunches at Indonesia Petroleum Club, Ridwan Rais Menteng, to now a vibrant club surpassing nearly 400, meeting practically every day, albeit virtually by WhatsApp. Past President Ismit Haddad can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe today's event marks the third rite of our club's constitution, once at its founding, once during the term of past President Daniel, and finally now. In all those years, HCI always had articles of incorporation that were democratically approved by members and validated by Harvard Alumni Association. Unfortunately, what was lacking was official registration of HCI as a legal Indonesian entity, namely Perkumpulan. Hence, in practical terms, HCI has been limited in how it represents itself externally, with no NPWP, no bank account to its own name, and most importantly, unable to sign partnerships as an alumni club having proper legal standing in Indonesia. So in closing, we hope that this meeting will close by noon. And before starting the meeting, can the secretary kindly report the attendance of today's EGM? Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Hasan. We can report that those present or represented are 53 people, and this EGM can validly make decisions that are valid and binding on agenda to establishment of Perkumpulan Klub Harvard Indonesia and amendment and restatement of the Constitution of HCI.
Thank you, Andre. Given the quorum has been met, this meeting can officially commence to take valid and binding resolutions. Dengan memohon rahmat Tuhan Yang Maha Esa, I open this EGM at 10:34 Western Indonesia time. Pursuant to the request of the President, the revised agenda of today's EGM is as follows. Number 1, report by the President of HCI for activities from April 2019 to May 2020, and the board decision to enforce membership dues as of July 2020. 2, establishment of Perkumpulan Klub Harvard Indonesia and amendment and restatement of the Constitution of HCI. For the first agenda, which is a reporting item, there is no minimum quorum nor any voting required. For the second agenda, in accordance with Article 7 of the 2009 Constitution, the power to amend or restate the Constitution shall be vested in a special meeting of the club, convened for such a purpose, attended by at least 1/2 of the existing members of the club, by vote of 2/3 of those present. In the event of a quorum not being fulfilled, the special meeting shall be adjourned to the following day from the number of persons in attendance. Let us now proceed to the first agenda, being report by the President and Vice President of HCI activities from April 2019 to May 2020, and the board decision to enforce membership dues as of July 2020. Melly, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Hasan. Selamat pagi semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for joining on this beautiful Sunday morning. This morning, I would like to give a report and an update on our activities since we first started. Can we start with the slide? Next. I just want to go back to our campaign promise. We had run on a set of initiatives in which we sought to basically improve the club through ways by which we thought was important. And what we want to ensure is that a promise is not just a promise. It is actually something that we need to, with our best efforts, to implement. And actually, that is why today we are here on a very important issue, which because is something that I always thought was the reason that I actually ran. I came into Harvard Club and actually very, very late in the game, graduated in '94, but was really not knowledgeable that there was actually any club activities. And it was only in 2016 that I was actually invited to the WAG, and then was very much happy to meet many of you from the WhatsApp group and make friendship. But then I saw that there were a lot of things that had to be improved. And so that was actually my calling, that's the reason. That was the reason that I ran. But actually there was also some things that we want to do in terms of activities. And hopefully throughout the year that we've served now, more than 15 months, you have seen a lot of activities which have allowed us to meet more often, to interact more effectively, and also to do good. So I would like to have Nurul, our Vice President, sort of go through our activities and make a report. And also we have a little video later. So Nurul, I'll leave the floor to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mbak Melly. So yes, I think in the beginning, these are the 5 main programs that we would like to pursue. I think out of these 5, at least we have covered most of them, 4 of them. So to build sustainable infrastructures by improving the club constitution, which is exactly what we're trying this morning. And then the second one is to facilitate connection. It's through our regular events. We have conducted global networking nights, sending off new students, and unfortunately, for the welcoming back of new graduates, it's going to be challenging due to the pandemics. So the one that we are still trying to figure out is the mentor Harvard wannabes. But we also have conducted the Make a Difference program, which is through the collaboration through the shared interest groups. I think there are some very active shared interest groups currently going on. And also for the Give Back and Keep the Pride, which we have been conducted in form of social fundraising for during the COVID pandemic era. So maybe next slide. So I think also for the discussions, we have had several discussions. sorry, I was still on mute. So that sums up the activities that we've done in the past year. So we started also from the designing the program from an online survey that we did in April 2019. And the suggested program was mostly for discussion and lectures, which is the top most requested events, and also social gatherings. And the proposed programs in the beginning was 3 discussions and 3 social gatherings and 1 social programs. And as you see in the video, what we delivered is 6 discussions, 4 social gatherings, 2 social programs or fund drives. So I thank you to some of the members here who have initiatively led and organized some of the discussions. I honestly did not organize them by myself. A lot of them were helped by the other members, including Mbak Naim, and then also the last discussion was held by Tiza and Ayu, and maybe other names that I won't say one by one at this time. So the idea is to have as many members to contribute to lead the program. So we have a discussions which topic is in the interest of the member of HCI. And also for the social programs, it's also a collaboration with Mbak Yeni Wahid for the Peace Village Fund Drive. I think we collected about 150 million rupiah in March. And then in April for the COVID-19 Fund Drive, which was also in collaborations with the Peace Village Fund Drive as well. We gather 782 million rupiah, and we give the fund in form of PPE or alat pelindung diri (APD) to 57 beneficiaries, hospitals, and primary healthcare around Indonesia, which include those in Jakarta, Sumatera Utara, NTT, Maluku, West Java, East Java, Central Java, West Kalimantan, South Sulawesi, Bali, and Papua. So thank you so much for all the HCI members who have been actively involved and supporting to all the programs and fund drives that we held in the first year. Hopefully in the following year, we will have more interesting discussions, still also led by HCI members that we help to organize. I think that's it, Meli, from me. Oh, and also for the book prize, I think the additional is just for the book prize. Thank you for Brand. We have we give away 3 book prize this year, but 2 is will be awarded in the fall term to the Jakarta International School.
Thank you, Nurul, for helping to report on the program. So I am also very thankful to all the members of the club for taking the time to join our activities. But now I want to talk about something which is probably some of you are fine with it, but some of you perhaps were thinking that maybe we're just going to never actually impose member dues. But if you look at the 2009 Constitution, member dues is always actually something that is there. It is a best practice. It is something that HCI recommends. And therefore, this is something that also we actually want to implement in due course, because if you notice as well, from the draft constitution that we made, is that there's a clause that says the board must implement the constitution. We cannot ignore it. It's not supposed to be just a piece of paper you put away. No, you're supposed to really walk the talk. So maybe, can you put on the slide? So what is the reason? Why do we need to actually draw member dues? So maybe I think I need to share a little bit about the activities and in terms of full disclosure, in terms of the cost for these activities, because as you know, there is, things do not just happen magically. They are not all sponsors. And basically, there are actually costs that are usually associated with these activities. And it is actually something that I'm actually quite familiar with, having been a ketum of Iluni Hawi, that sometimes it is actually the responsibility of the ketua to actually sometimes take on these costs as a sort of standby guarantee. But if we look at actually our ability to donate, then let us see what happens when we actually ask people to donate for charity. So we saw that there were actually two initiatives that we pushed through. It was Peace Village and COVID-19. And as you can see, that actually we were able to collect quite a lot of money. And we can see that actually we can collect also from our members, and actually also with our name. We can actually be sort of the agent to actually collect and then distribute it, because people trust Harvard Club. So, but basically based on these numbers, it's quite clear. I mean, of course, I probably didn't have to produce this draft, this slide to show that Harvard Club can afford to pay dues. But this is just to show that if we can pay for charity, then surely we can pay for the well-running of our club. I think we need to sort of understand that, unlike the Indonesian way of thinking, is that the club does need to have sustainability. And in the future, we need to have it to be financially sustainable, because we don't want also that it's only somebody that can afford to have the financial risk of running a club to run. We want the best person, the caring person. And slowly we need to build sustainability. Membership dues are one of the ways by which we can at least fulfill the obligation to do the mandatory programs that is required of Harvard, which includes the Global Networking Night and also the Student Send-Off. So basically what I'm proposing is that as of July, we will be imposing, in order for members to become active members and to actually have their voting rights and run to the right to run for office, is to pay an annual due of 1,500,000 to the treasurer. And basically, we'll be very happy if you can pay this as soon as possible, but definitely this amount will have to be paid before the next general meeting, because unless you pay, then you actually cannot vote at the meeting. And so this is a little bit of carrot and stick, because, you know, again, as I was saying, there's no doubt you guys can afford it, but it's surprising in Indonesia, people sometimes forget that they do have to actually do the actual action of paying and not just say they will pay. So because I know that in the past administration of previous presidents, it was not that they did not try to collect dues, but it was not easy. So I would like to say that actually this is one of the things that I think is very important in terms of actually also strengthening this infrastructure of the club, so that we will be actually enforcing the membership dues. And I hope that you will accept this as something that is quite reasonable. And I'm very happy to answer any questions from you at the question and answer session after this. Thank you very much. Back to you, Andre.
Thank you, Mameli. Thank you for the report. Let us now proceed to the Q&A session. The Q&A button down there is now open, and we can start collecting questions, and we will stop at 5 questions.
3 questions.
Oh, sorry, revision, 3 questions. So currently we still have no questions, and we'll just wait. Okay, there is a question by Paulo. Is it 1.5 million per annum? Should we wait for the next 2 questions?
No.
Okay, Mameli will
I'll just
address.
answer, yes, it is 1.5 million per annum. And of course, you are more than welcome to donate more if you think 1.5 is too small. Yes, 1.5 will get you free entrance to the Global Networking Night. Maybe if I'm nice, iftar, but definitely Student Send-Off. Okay? So that's what you get for 1.5, and you still can get continued service. Then for other things, we will have pay-per-use, so that we can cover the additional things, or we find sponsors. So that's what it is. But that's basically to run. And also there is admin cost as well. As you know, we have support staff that helps us, and this will help us. We also actually book the Zoom. We actually subscribe to Zoom, which costs $140 a month. So those are some of the things. So yes, very much, it's 1.5 million. And I hope that's not a big ask for you. Any other questions?
I guess there's a question by Pak Nasir. Okay, so we have another, this is probably not a question, more like a
Statement.
yeah. So Pak Bambang Harimurti mentioned that he agrees with the dues of 1.5 million, but not with the dues, but not with the amount. So he's still thinking that amount is not yet affordable to everyone. So probably that's the second question. And there is also, okay, we have 3 questions already for by Monica. Is the due also applicable for new graduates who are not always in a secure position or in a fixed income, or yeah, we can say secure position? That's both of the questions. If you can right away.
We had a meeting on this in January with all the board members, and we talked about the fact that we were thinking of actually applying dues and what would be a reasonable amount. And of course, originally the number that was actually proposed by the board was 1 million, but I believe that actually 1.5 million is very, very reasonable. Now, maybe you're thinking that if you're a recent graduate, maybe you cannot afford that, but I would argue that actually I think that this is not a big amount. It's in terms of once every month. What does it? Just divide it by 12. I'm not the mathematician here. But yes, I think that it's not unreasonable. And basically, the only thing that happens is that you're not an active member. You'll still be a member. You'll still be in our list. You can still come to the pay-per-use. Let's say we have a program, and then you have to pay $200 for that. 200,000 for that. You can just come without being an active member. But at the moment you want to use your right to vote and you want to run for office, you have to show you have always fulfilled your membership dues. So I think that's my answer.
All right. Thank you, Mbak Melly. And we have all 3 questions already addressed, and we're moving on to the next agenda, being the establishment. So we're giving the floor back to Pak Hasan.
There was a question from Naim about this, and I think it deserves an answer because this issue will be put to vote as well, and she's asking about the voting itself.
Let me help because Andre doesn't understand. As we explained in the tata tertib, is that all the votes, all the registrants, all the votes counted in, and those that are here are actually counted as the quorum. It is not the physical attendance at this meeting, because some people have done what is called proxy voting. Proxy voting is where you actually have registered to attend, you have sent in your vote, and it has been cast. And we actually always said that the registration would be considered as a quorum. Now, it could be later, we already know how many voted from those that have actually, so there are actually approximately how many proxy votes accepted? Sorry, let me ask my administrator. Yang sudah vote, how many? So 90 people have already voted. So that means out of 128 registrants, another 38 will have to vote after agenda. It's possible that the 38 people are not all at this meeting. That's why we said in the tata tertib, no votes will be considered as abstain. So it could be that, I don't know how many, it could be that even those that are here might have already voted. So it also doesn't mean that those that are in the webinar, the 53, is it 53, yes, might not all be the ones that have not voted. But later, so our admin will actually show the voting, but we will have to add, to the extent that it seems that those that have voted is still less than 128, then we will consider the difference to be abstain. So that is the legality of the meeting. It has been due process, announced very clearly, and the proxy vote mechanism is very common in many jurisdictions, including Indonesia. So there is no need for actually the votes to people to actually have to attend or to send a proxy. And also it is also a bit different. That the difference is that you can still have already voted but still attend, and that your vote is still good. So that has been the mechanism by which we actually count the quorum to actually just eliminate any doubt. I hope that explains the issue of quorum.
Okay, thank you, President Melly. Nasir Tamara also asked a question, but I think we can, it seems more related to the second agenda, so we'll keep it as the first question of the second agenda. But
Pak Hasan, I'm sorry. I mean, I know Andre is the secretary, but I need to help. Tata tertibnya adalah pertanyaan ditanya pada saat session dibuka. You don't ask now, you ask later at the session. So now we are actually answering some of the questions before, and maybe because actually it's not related to this agenda of the report. People could have asked about other things. They could have asked about what is the role of the rep officer, but I don't see that anybody's taking the opportunity. This is actually the time to ask me if you want. And then, but we need to stick to the tata tertib, which is you ask your questions at the time of the agenda. And so if anyone has question for the second agenda, you wait for your turn when the second agenda is open, and it hasn't yet been open. Oke, maaf ya Pak Hasan, karena Andre nggak bisa menjelaskan ini, and I have to sort of play both roles. Thank you.
What I was trying to say was that the question that Nasir posed is related more to the second agenda. So I was telling the meeting here that it will be addressed as the question for the second agenda. Silakan Pak Andre, we can continue with the next agenda. I guess it's my turn to speak here. So let us now proceed to the second agenda, being establishment of Perkumpulan Klub Harvard Indonesia and amendment and restatement of the Constitution of HCI. For this agenda, I give the opportunity to ask the President to present her explanation and rationale for the proposed establishment of the Perkumpulan and the amendment and restatement of the Constitution. I will then chair the question and answer to the President, who may, if she chooses, ask another BOD or officer or part of the legal team to answer the questions. Thereafter, we will proceed with voting. President Melly, the floor is yours.
Wabarakatuh, because I think this is the agenda that everybody has been waiting for. So let me take a little bit of time to present, and I hope that from my presentation, for those of you who still have questions or doubt about this, that you could actually get more information, and to the extent that my presentation is not clear enough, then I'm very happy to take on questions at the question and answer. And I will be helped by the legal team as well as the other advisors as well. So let's go to the next slide. So again, why are we amending the 2009 Constitution? As I said, it was part of our campaign promise, build a sustainable infrastructure of HCI. This was what we ran on when we actually put ourselves to lead, together with No Role, to lead HCI. The motto that we set at that time was that we wanted to lead and give back. So we said that basically we thought that it was very important for us to build a sustainable infrastructure to accommodate the interests, concerns, and aspirations of all the members. This includes amending and improving HCI's constitutive documents in line with applicable laws, as well build a system of accountability, which include maintenance of proper bank accounts and records of accountability. And that way, HCI as an association based in Indonesia will be better to ensure legitimacy and protection of all its members and also the interests of Harvard. Next. I know perhaps it seems to be like boasting, but I want to explain why I am so passionate about this. Because I think that most people do not run to become president of a Harvard Club to change the Constitution. Most people run for other reasons, but to be very truthful, my main reason for running was because I wanted to help make it even better, because I thought that it was potentially, it's something that can be great given the elites and the talents that are there. But if you look at my lifespan, starting from when I first started university, is that there is actually a constant pattern whereby I had gone to a certain school and then I would do certain things to actually help with the association that was linked to it. So first is that I'm an alumna of FHUI, and if you saw that in 2012, I ran for the Ketua Uni FHUI, and I was able at the end of the term to actually make the Anggaran Dasar and create e-voting. Although this alumni association had existed for many, many years. And it was the e-voting system that was then replicated by Fakultas Teknik and later by Iluni UI to allow a very democratic process of voting. And to tell you the truth, it was a very hard process for me to do the Anggaran Dasar. I got even more lashback from seniors for that, but fortunately we were able to do that. And I stepped down immediately in 2015 and gave the chairmanship to Fikriah Kesegaf, and now it is with Asoya Ratan. In brief, is that basically I built not to stay in power, but to ensure that institutions are built to last. Secondly, I also got Eisenhower Fellowship in 2010. Interestingly, the first president of Harvard Club, I believe a doctor, I am sorry I don't recall his name, is actually also an Eisenhower Fellow. It means that actually there have been many Eisenhower Fellowships before I became an Eisenhower Fellow. Yet it was after I was involved that we were able, together with Rahma Pribadi and Jerry Ang, who actually thought this was important, created Perkumpulan Eisenhower Fellowship. As well, in that institution, I did not choose to become the head, but I'm still up to now the treasurer. So basically when it comes to wanting to amend the Constitution, it is not because I want to do anything that is bad intent, but actually to improve the institution. And I have a lot of knowledge to understand about alumni associations, which actually is a value of the Harvard. And I feel it is very important for me to explain this because I think that many people have cast comments that put doubt on my capability and competence and experience in this matter, in addition to those that are part of my team. And I think it is important for me to be very clear that I have always had, I have a strong track record for volunteering and also for improving institutions. Next. Next slide. People have always, there are some people who have been commenting in the past few years as if there was something feudalistic about Harvard Alumni Association, as if interfering with our freedom of association. So let me just try to share with you the information about what is the connection between Harvard Alumni Association and Harvard Club Indonesia. Now, President Hassan has actually said that Harvard Club of Indonesia was established 45 years ago by certain individuals. But as lawyers go, when we look at something, we look at the legal document. What happened there between the so-called formation and 2009? Perhaps something was formed, we don't know, but at least we don't have the document. And actually, this is not unusual. We've seen this in BANI. BANI is the Indonesian Arbitration Board. That has come to become a dispute just because there was a question as to who actually established BANI, and this has become the dualism. We also see this in other institutions in Indonesia. What I mean is that in Indonesia, it is quite common that associations become issues of dispute and competition among its members. We do know there is a 2009 constitution. When it was established, to tell you the truth, I was an alumni since 1994, but I never knew about it. And thus I was not one of them that was invited to incorporate it. I would have liked to, but that's okay because I see that I've been represented by at least three HLS graduates, and also very, very respectable and honorable alumni. But there is a question here as to actually what was actually formed at the time. It was an English document, and it was not prepared before a notary. And so we don't really know whether it was really a Perkumpulan Perdata or not. Because if it was a Perkumpulan Perdata, then usually it would be the notary and it will be registered with the Ministry of Law. And we know that in the last election, the legality of the Constitution in terms of eligibility to run created a big issue in terms of who can run for president of Harvard Club. Up till today, we are still feeling the resentment of how that issue was resolved, whereby at that time as well, we asked HAA to actually come in to actually give us guidance on what we should be doing in this kind of situation. Thus, although I already understood the need to actually improve the Constitution, I felt it even more that it was very important. And therefore, basically, based on my experience developing Perkumpulan Eisenhower Fellowship, I believe that the legal certainty could be established by virtue of actually connecting the club with some legal form which is acknowledged under Indonesian law. This would also actually enable us to get a bank account which would allow us to do a more aggressive fundraising for the many idealistic causes that we have. For example, I am very much inspired by what is done in Australia, which is able to raise over 50 million US dollar for scholarships. Now, maybe we are not able to do that, but I think that as Brenshin sort of enlightened me when I first wanted to run was that, Melly, you need to make Harvard Club do what it is actually tasked to do, which is basically how do you increase the admission to Harvard. And that is also one of the reasons why I want Harvard Club to be effective, because I want it to be able to be credible. I want it to be not the impersonification of people, but actually a legal entity that people can trust. And thus, we actually talked about trying to do this. Now, basically, is that if we look at the template of association, you will see that actually, that indeed, all the clubs have to coordinate with Harvard Alumni Association. And as we can see, it was established hundreds of, there is still a typo. This was 1847, you guys haven't changed it. So Associate Harvard Clubs is 1847, and it was first established in 1840. But let me explain how they work. They work through a board that are actually, there's the executive committee of HHA board, and it's divided into directors, which are Harvard University employee HA directors, and there are HA alumni, which are volunteers. So it is a combination of alumni and paid. And basically under that, under the HA directors, there are directors of clubs and SIGs. And although we talk about SIGs, actually the SIGs that we have are not SIGs in the eyes of HAA, because these are actually very strictly regulated. Now, as you can see, also under the director of clubs and SIGs, there is a senior associate director that has the responsibility for a number of regions, which includes Asia. And if we can see is that basically this seems to be the emerging countries and emerging economies. And indeed, most of these clubs are usually under 1,000 members. And basically, clubs that are in these countries are under the supervision of HAA, because basically these clubs do not stand in isolation. So if we talk about what is the connection between Harvard Alumni Association and Harvard Club of Indonesia, Harvard Club of Indonesia constitutes one of the tools of HAA, but also is a reflection of alumni continued service to the university. And therefore, this is why it is very important that we actually work together with AA, and also indeed that was the process that was done. So it is not a matter of feudalism. It is just the same as if, for example, Ikatan Alumni Universitas Pajajaran, Ikatan Alumni ITB. These are things that are regulated by the university. The difference is that Harvard University, being the oldest university, had established this since 1840, and is a very developed system mixed on employees and also volunteers. So people do this all for volunteers, including myself, who is now going to be, as of July, one of part of HAA. So let me just explain that Harvard Club does not stand in isolation. There is no possibility of any alumni of Harvard to set up any other club or SIG other than through approval of Harvard Alumni Association. That is not wrong that we actually ask for our draft to be first looked at by HAA, because at the end of the day, we have to comply with its rules and policies. Indeed, in the last few years, because of many problems in these countries, Harvard Alumni Association have taken a particular attention to ensure that the bylaws are strong and ensure the interests of the university as well as the alumni's concern. Next. So again, is that HAA directors in charge of clubs and SIGs are more focused on monitoring clubs. And basically their focus is especially in regard of approval of bylaws and constitutions, agreement on trade and policy, conflict of interest rules, and also submission of annual reports by the club to the HAA. So it's very clear that indeed, the thing that we have been doing is under the special focus of HAA in Cambridge, because it is deemed that basically how these clubs are regulated are going to be very much determined by how the bylaws and whether it is clear. And they basically are very much focused on this, and that's why we have a heightened activity in constitution revisions in many of the countries in Asia. And also, if you were to look at the download the HAA Officer Lounge, there is indeed available information in the public domain. But make no mistake, this is not a do it by yourself and do what else you want in terms of setting a Harvard club. And sometimes, indeed, what is confusing is that a lot of the templates are actually more for clubs that are set up in the United States of America. The clubs that they have there are very, very large. And therefore, they're actually, when you look at these clubs, they are not the ones that apply to ones that are in our countries such as ours. And also, even in those templates, it does say that the club shall cooperate with officers, regional directors, and committees and staff of HAA. So that is very important. So whilst Harvard Clubs is financially independent of HAA, but we're required to follow the directions of HAA. Next, please. So as I was explaining, is that the Constitution is basically the document which will be the basis by which we in Indonesia will be trying to transform it to become the legal forms that are acknowledged under Indonesian law. As you know, we are actually trying to establish a Perkumpulan. And therefore, this constitution is the base by which will be translated later into what we call the Anggaran Dasar and Anggaran Rumah Tangga. And I think that we try to basically make very clear the summary of key differences with the 2009 constitution. Although not perfect, again, as Pak Gatot was saying, we have sought to really be to accommodate all parties' interests. As you know, there are many things that are quote unquote sensitive, especially if before things were not actually made so strict in the past and people sort of felt as if there was no governance that had to be or rules that had to be followed. But basically is that we have to understand, despite it being named a club, Harvard clubs all around the world are essentially alumni associations. And alumni means are parties that actually have paid to get an education in that university. Now, Harvard actually, if you were to open also the website of Harvard Alumni Association, you will see that even it itself differentiates between degree holders and non-degree holders, which they call associated members. Notwithstanding is that Harvard Alumni Association also says very clearly in an unequivocal terms to us when we were drafting it, that those that are considered to be associated members, thus generally people that have taken a 6-week course at Harvard and not online. It is very important because Harvard Club is a community. It is not something you just take online. And it doesn't matter about the pandemic. This is very clear. You have to have spent time in Cambridge to get the transformation to be part of the community. But essentially, when we were debating what should be the definition of members, because we were struggling from the beginning with the definition that they had given in their constitution draft of regular and friends members, which frankly speaking, I and the whole team had misunderstood until about 10 days, perhaps before this meeting, because we actually thought that alumni, as they defined it, meant alumni as degree holders, and that somehow the associated members were friends. And that's why when we made our draft, we actually tried to give friends voting rights. And they said to us in unequivocal terms, you cannot give the friends voting rights. And I said, how can I? This is going to be very difficult for me because the associated members will not be happy if they don't have voting rights. And they say, there's not a problem with the associate members because the associate members are alumni. So they're already regular members and they have to be absolutely equal. And I said, this is also going to be an issue. There are some degree holders that do not agree that associate members should be treated totally equal. Basically, because if you notice, there is absolutely, in the end of the day, under this constitution, no difference whatsoever between a degree holder and an executive program participants that is afforded an alumni status. So we have been very, very fair. In terms of the definition of friends member, then perhaps under Indonesian language, this is not a term which is friendly to the ears. However, in Western culture, the friends is actually a very significant part. And actually, it is actually also very accommodating because it means that the friends can participate in these activities. Why is it not open to just any program, including online? Because Harvard Alumni Association also believes that it is unfair to have the club bear too much burden on accommodating perhaps the interest of many, many thousands of people that probably have taken these online, sometimes free courses as its members. And so there has to be some limitation. Again, I know that some people have actually debated about the definition, but this is also something that we struggled with. And at the end of the day, after also talking to people that I knew exactly they were not in agreement that associated members should be treated absolutely equally, I got their blessing to say, Melly, what is the best for the club? That is what I will do. And therefore, that is why under unequivocal term is that all the associated members from the business school, from the Kennedy School, from whichever school, we don't have it from the law school. And that's why for us lawyers, it's very hard to accept. But you are actually equal. So I continue to be baffled by claims as if there is unfairness in the draft. And also, I know that also there was actually a question about expertise and serving, but that is actually something that we cannot negotiate. So, but I do want to go in terms of the terms. Can you go? So I think you've already read it, and I'm happy to get questions, but I just want to go into the main points that were actually discussed. Is that I have gotten input about the 3-year term times 2. As you know, under the 2009 Constitution, there was even no limit of terms, and that's why, if I'm not mistaken, George, is that you served 3 times. And basically, so when we did this, we just took the 3 years terms and we just made it 2 because HCI says basically Melly just limited it to 2 and they had no problem with 3 years. So again, there was not something bad motive about 3 years being taken besides 1 or 2. However, I think that for Indonesia, a 1-year term is way, way too short. Usually 1-year terms are used in very, very advanced markets and bars. For example, in the American Bar Association, the president is actually rotated every year as well. The president of Harvard Alumni Association is only 1 year. But that's because there is no real election, and actually it is a very smooth and amicable process. But as we know, we are a young democracy. And for many people have fun in these democratic processes. I know very well for a fact, whenever there's an election at Iluni FHUI, it's really a lot of fun. We all get excited about it, and so, but I think that in Indonesia, a 1-year term is actually not good, not appropriate. And therefore, to listen and to also eliminate any doubt that I have any interest to stay here for as long as I want, or longer than people might be comfortable with, or longer than people feel comfortable that they might be able to run against me, is that I have agreed that we would be proposing. Did you find it already? Yang tadi mana? Is it already there? Sorry, let me just go to the thing. So what I'm proposing is that the draft, and this is actually acceptable to HCI, is that the term of the president and the vice president is going to be only for 2 years, starting 2022, and that basically, here, stop here. You propose submitted EGM. The president and vice president of the BOD shall be appointed through an election and shall serve for a term of 2 years. Elections must be held at the latest 45 days before the end of the 2nd term. I do, however, state this. For the avoidance of doubt, the president and vice president, including the secretary, treasurer, and officers currently serving HCI at the time of this constitution is approved, shall serve the remaining of their appointed terms being until the end of March 2002. At such time, the current president and the vice president shall be eligible to run for a 2nd term of 2 years should either of them wish, and the election must be convened 45 days before the end of March 2022. And so basically that is a change that I'm proposing now at this table. And I believe that I have listened very carefully to all the comments. To tell you the truth, I think some of the comments and the criticisms were actually unfair and also kalau saya bilang tidak sopan, but it is okay. It is the job of a leader to listen. It is not the job of the leader to always be loved, but it is the job of the leader to do the right thing for its stakeholders. And so with this presentation, I hope that this actually explains the rationale and the reasoning. And if you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer it in the question and answer, and I will be helped by the legal team. Thank you, Pak Hasan.
Thank you, President Melly.
All right.
And now go
So
to.
let's get to the second Q&A session.
Hold on, Pak Andre. It's my floor, not yours. Hold on. According to the script, anyway. So now we can go to the second session, and the second session with questions and answers of a maximum of 3 questions. We'll give everybody a few minutes to ask questions, and please put them in the chat box, and we will select the 3 questions of from you all. Pak Andre, just a quick question. Is George's video audio in order now? Because maybe we can use the waiting time.
Yeah, we should try.
Yeah,
George...
I think also just to relax.
So George,
can you hear me?
Yes, good. Thank you. You're on.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to see all of you here. Unfortunately, we cannot see all your faces, but in spirit, I can completely feel it. Just want to say that I'm so happy that Melly and her team has put in so much effort. I don't think I personally can put in that amount of effort, so I'm so happy. And looking through all the events that we had in the past year, I truly miss the pre-COVID days, and hopefully we can go to pre-COVID days very, very soon. So thank you, and I'm so happy that we're all here to vote. And I think it'll be a new beginning for the club, like what Daniel said. So I truly believe in that, and I will put my 100% support behind Melly and her team to make this thing better. Thank you so much. All right, God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Past President George. Very cheerful address. So we're still waiting for the questions. Obviously, married life looks good on you again. And while we wait for the questions, we'll address the question that Pak Nasir asked actually in the wrong session, but it can be asked now. His question was relating to, let me find it again because it's buried in a lot of. Okay, his question is, apa setuju bila ada yang usul perubahan konstitusi? That was Pak Nasir's question. Do we want to wait for the other questions, or does perhaps Ibu Melly can answer while we wait for the other questions?
Sorry Pak Hasan, aku nggak nangkep apa pertanyaannya, jadi ya. Persisnya apa ya? Nggak jelas gitu bagi saya. Sorry, maaf ya, dan saya nggak bisa lihat di chatnya.
His question is, apakah setuju bila ada yang usul perubahan konstitusi? That was the question that Nasir posed at 10:57.
I would suggest Pak Nasir, because the question is so vague and I don't know how to answer it sincerely. Unless, Jika, do you understand the question? If you want to answer the question, I don't think it's clear. Jika, you're mute.
Okay.
Jika, can you help?
Okay. I think can I say something? Mr. Chairman, can I speak?
Sorry, please.
Could I speak? Okay. I think the questions of Pak Nasir is that about the amendment of the constitutions, and I suppose that of course constitutions can be amended. And the thing is that now we just try to confirm the proposed amendment. I mean the proposed constitution to be confirmed first. Soon after this this constitution is confirmed or approved, then we actually already prepare a section in the proposed constitution as become new constitutions. You could see in the Article 7 about the amendments to the constitutions that there are some requirements there. So we're supposed to refer to that article if you want to again amend the constitutions. I think that is the answer.
Yes, because you are the master drafter, I'm sure you remember where every question belongs to and related to which clause in our proposed constitution. Thank you very much. I hope it's clear now for Pak Nasir that yes, amendments to constitutions is actually possible, and just refer to article number 7. Thank you.
There is one question, Pak, di Q&A box.
Silakan. Which question? Maybe Pak Andre, you can deliver the question.
Okay, I will read it from Pak Anwar Nasution. Masa jabatan ketua apa tidak dapat diperpanjang? So the duration of the presidency, could it be extended to 3 to 4 years? Because 2 years are too short. From Pak Anwar Nasution.
Selamat siang Pak Anwar, udah lama nggak ketemu, last time ketemu di salah satu acara bank. Mungkin Bapak lupa sama saya. Salam hormat. So let me just explain. So the original term of the president under the 2009 constitution was for 3 years. And actually 3 years is something that is quite common in Indonesia for alumni association. I've seen this in many of the alumni associations. And normally also it is actually quite normal that there is the ability to run again. Because normally sometimes maybe people have programs that require more time. So maybe the person is really just doing a good job. That's why one would normally have an allowance for extension. Now, having said that, however, it is true that the HCI guidelines that are publicly available seem to have a little bit of inconsistency in terms of the terms in which they say that in most of the jurisdictions, the term of the president is 1 or 2 years, although 3 years is actually the max can be allowed. And so 3 years is within the line. But in order to have a longer term of 3 years back, that is actually not allowed, and it's also not best practice. Because basically, this is what is actually prevent is just people overstaying. That people might get comfortable, right? Because there is a lot of maybe social perks, if not financial perks, that come with these kind of positions. And I got this comment a lot during the last 2 days, and I feel again that I think although it will put more burden on me in terms of ensuring the succession. And maybe it might be that I would have to run again, let's say in 2022, because maybe by that time, there might not be somebody that is ready to take on after me. But however, I think that we have to push ourselves to a higher standard. I think we need to push that actually we want to make it that this is an institution that people want to serve, that it is not a burden, and that in fact enjoyable, but also doable. And so 2 years time too, because if the person is good enough, then in logic is that he or she should be reappointed, and hopefully unless he or she also has other commitments that cannot allow it, or maybe for example is against the principles, might be considered to be conflict of interest, or might be the person might be going to politics, of course he or she will have to withdraw. But I think that as a leader, having listened to the comments that have come in the past few days, I have taken the decision that the constitution I am proposing is actually for a term of 2 years times 2, starting 2022. And meanwhile, it will be the homework of the Board of Supervisors and ourselves to ensure a healthy succession pipeline. And I have no doubt, given the talents that is available in the alumni community. I hope that answers it.
Thank you, President Melly. There's a question from Ali at 11:32 a.m. If you look in the chat box, why we do not have executive committee who overlooked the officer, and why we omit the BOA that vote by member. I'm sure President Melly can address that question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Pali, for your question. So your question is that why is actually there is no more the board of advisors, and why is there no executive committee, and who is actually supervising the board and officers? So essentially is that HCI understands fully that notwithstanding that they want to impose certain standardized clause, that in relation to the jurisdiction concerns, there may be certain laws that are applicable and have to be paid observed to. In this respect is the laws relating to Perkumpulan, which is the form that we've decided will be the most effective form for an association like Harvard Club Indonesia. In the Perkumpulan, the organs, what we call usually, or basically the organs of the Perkumpulan is the Dewan Pengurus, the Dewan Pengawas, and basically that is only that. For example, and so to compare, let's say, to perseroan terbatas, which as a business person, I'm sure you're familiar, that means that the equivalent is you have the direksi, Dewan Komisaris, and you have the Rapat Umum Pengasahan. In the Perkumpulan, what we have is the Dewan Pengurus, which will comprise of the Ketua, Bendahara, and Sekretaris. So actually by law, there is not a Wakil Presiden kalau dalam Perkumpulan Indonesia. Furthermore, this board is actually supervised by the Badan Pengawas, which is the Board of Supervisors. In this respect, Harvard Law Association has clearly set out that they wish the Board of Supervisors to be set up and made up only and specifically of past presidents, because the role of the Board of Supervisors has to be one which is linked to having a historical knowledge in running the club. It is not something whereby we would actually require somebody that actually has no knowledge of the club to supervise. And so that is the situation. Now, why is there not an executive committee? Again, as I was saying, and this was also actually asked to me by a very senior person of this HCI, is why is that also the wording in the Constitution is generally in compliance with HCI regulations and policies and rules. And I would like to explain why do we say it's generally in compliance with and not totally in compliance with, because it's possible that under our laws and also under our specific situation, we might have to ask for exemptions or we might have to deviate. So therefore, basically, while we are actually allowed to follow the laws and regulations, we also are also allowed to actually ask for leniencies in terms of certain policies where we can argue that there are certain needs. For example, the requirement that those persons that run for president and vice president is actually unequivocally based on current HCI policies have to have served in the board and officers. However, as you can see, we have it in our draft that we have actually freed up this requirement for 2022, and HCI allowed that. So they are also reasonable. And there is also another clause in the summary, if you read, and also in the long one, in relation to interpretation and also the Constitution Committee. So one thing that is also very different is that in addition to the Board of Supervisors, which is made up of past presidents, the legality of all situations will be determined by a Constitution Committee, which is made up of legal experts that are determined by the President together with the Board of Supervisors. Therefore, all legal matters relating to rights of memberships or other things that are stipulated in the Constitution will not be based on the interpretation only of the board or the Board of Supervisors by a Constitution Committee. And therefore, basically, this is actually to allow, on the one hand, flexibility, but also being subject to good governance and also good legality. Thank you.
Thank you, Melly.
And I'll return the floor.
There's a question that was raised by Ali. The Board of Supervisors and the adalah Dewan Pengawas, and the Board of Directors is our Dewan Pengurus. Those two are mandatory in the form of Perkumpulan in Indonesia, and that has been approved also by HAA. Thank you. I don't think there's any more questions, so I'd like to return the floor to our secretary. Silakan, Andre. Thank you. Well, since there is no more questions to be addressed, then I'd like to go into the next item in our meeting, because noon is fast approaching. With the end of the Q&A, we will now proceed to vote. The resolution to be voted on is to approve, one, the amended and restated constitution as already received by members, and two, the establishment of Perkumpulan Klub Harvard Indonesia. And for such purpose, further approve to give power of attorney with the right of substitution to Melidalsa Nurul Nadia H.W. Luntungan, Andre Prawira Putra, and Aricia Arundati Pusponogoro as President, Vice President, Secretary, and Treasurer of Harvard Club of Indonesia, jointly or severally. Do all actions required to restate amended and restated constitution in the form of a notarial deed of establishment of Perkumpulan Klub Harvard Indonesia, including, without limitation, appear before a public notary, deliver the notarial deed to any relevant authorities for approval, registration, or notification, and do everything that is necessary and useful for this purpose without exclusion to the extent it is required by the relevant authorities. Can the Secretary, I will give you now the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pa Hassan, for reading our resolution to be voted on. So now we will proceed on the voting, and we will give 10 minutes for the voting to go on. We will start at probably sharp at 11:45. Is that good? 11:45 is around 3 more minutes. And we will give 10 minutes from 10:45 to, sorry, we will give 10 minutes from 11:45 to 11:55, and you can find the link in your email. So now you can open your email, and no, I mean 11:45, you can open your email and you will see there's an email to vote. So the link will be sent to those of you who haven't voted, obviously, and you can find it in your email at 11:45, which is 2 more minutes. So right when the timer hits 10 minutes, we will send you the link to your email. So if you, so we have sent the link to your emails, but if you, but if you're willing to use the old link, it's also possible, either the old one or the new one that we just sent to you. Less than 5 minutes. Two more minutes to vote. One more minute, less than 1 minute. Three, two, one, and that's it. Thumbs up.
Can the secretary kindly read the result of the vote for agenda 1? Thank you.
So please give us 5 minutes to finalize the results, to calculate all the results. I mean, it's automatic, but we need some 5 minutes. Okay, so we have received the results and we'll share it with you now. Okay, hold on, stop sharing. So this must be the most burning question of the year. So we have a total registrants of 129, and the number of approved votes is 98, with a number of objection votes is 6, and the number of abstain plus no votes is 25. And abstain counts as approved. Thus, we have 95.35% approved votes and 4.65% of objections. The resolution is thus approved as a valid and binding resolution of this EGM. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. As was stated, thus the resolution is now adopted, legally and valid. This concludes our EGM at exactly noon Western Indonesia time. I'd like to thank the board for organizing this EGM, and our apologies to all participants for various glitches, but this is probably the first time we've ever done an EGM so formally and also so using electronic means. But thank you again, and God bless you all. Secretary?
Okay, to all panelists and attendees, we thank you all for your attendance and your support. And that's all from us. And selamat sore. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.